My name is Christian Burkhalter, and today I'm going to be talking about the life of Alvin Tex Johnston. He was born in rural Kansas in 1914, and at 11 years old, a barnstormer landed on his farm and took him for a ride, and that's what really cemented what he was going to do with his life. So, as a kid, he found and repaired a damaged glider that taught him the basics of flight, so ailerons, rudder, that sort of thing, and took his first official flight lesson in 1929 for $10 in a Waco biplane. As a teenager, he worked on farms, went gambling in Reno, toured Boeing facilities in California, won a boxing match in Oregon, all while logging flight training time. And eventually, he earned his limited commercial pilot's license and his A&P certificate at the Spartan School of Aeronautics in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, in an effort to kind of gain more flight time and more training, he hired on with the Inman Flying Circus in exchange for maintaining their Ford Trimotor just to help build time. But this was all during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, and that eventually forced the flying circus to move along. And Johnson then decided to buy his own plane and start barnstorming alone. But he quickly realized that that era had come and gone and decided to sell the plane and pursue aeronautical engineering. So he took a short break, earned some money, and started a family, and then joined on with the engineering program at Kansas State. And in 1938, as World War II was kind of starting up, the government started looking to train a lot more civilian pilots just in case, right? And so Johnston got hired on as an instructor at one of these schools and began earning $600 a month doing that, which was a lot of money at the time. And then when 1940 rolls around, he became the primary flight instructor at one of these schools in Fort Hicks, Texas. And you can see a picture of it right there. And then Pearl Harbor came, and the war effort really stepped up here in America. And Johnston signed on as a ferry pilot for the Air Corps, kind of just transferring planes to and from where they needed to go. And in 1942, he was offered a job as a test pilot for Bell Aircraft all the way up in New York. So he moved up to New York and started test flying the P-39s, which you can see in the top right there. And this is also where he earned the nickname of Tex for always wearing a Stetson and cowboy boots around. And quickly he moved on from doing the production test flights like he was with the P-39s and moved to the experimental testing, where he first kind of got his start analyzing a captured German fighter. He also tested the XP-53 and identified different problems with more mainstream aircraft like the P-47 and the P-51 Mustang. In 1943, he was selected for a program in the desert where he started testing America's first jet aircraft. And a few years later, he was named Bell's chief test pilot and also competed and won in the national air races after threatening to resign. Another one of Bell's test pilots had competed and ended up dying during these races, and they didn't want Johnston to compete anymore. But, well, he threatened to resign and won the races. And then a year after that, he was in charge of the X-1 program, which was made famous by Chuck Yeager and breaking the sound barrier. But it was actually Johnston who was the second pilot to ever fly it and was kind of in charge of the program. And after Boeing lost one of their test pilots, Johnston hired on with Boeing and became the senior experimental test pilot for the XB-47, which you can see on the top there. A few years after that, he became the first test pilot to ever fly the XB-52 Stratofortress, which you can see in the center. And then in 1954, he became the chief test pilot to fly the Boeing 707, or at least the prototype for it. And they debuted the plane in 1955 at air races, and there were some other aviation conferences going on around the same time. So Johnston goes over and does 2 barrel rolls in the 707. And when asked why he did it, He said it was just to sell the airplane. And he remained at Boeing doing various other projects and overseeing programs until 1968. After leaving Boeing, he started his own flight simulator company, developed transportation for different NASA rockets, and then became the chief pilot for the Stanley Aviation Corporation in 1975, which would be the last job he had before he retired. By the time 1995 rolled around, he was a widowed man and had developed Alzheimer's and eventually passed away in 1998. And there's a couple pictures of the man himself there. And there's my references.